Workplace fatalities in Massachusetts are on the rise. To talk about some of the problems and patterns is our guest from the Massachusetts Coalition for Occupational Safety and Health, or MassCOSH, the Membership and Communications Coordinator, Jeff Newton. Thank you very much for being with us, Jeff.
Thank you for having us. Me.
Jeff, what about this trend? The past few years, this has been sort of at least creeping up.
Yes, so this year was an especially high amount of workers killed in the job. It was 63 in total. In the past, we've been we're about seeing like 40s, lower 40s. In past years, we had kind of bumps and increases, but this year was a big jump to 63. And a main contributor to that are workers who work around motor vehicles. Transportation-related deaths were a big killer of individuals on the job this year.
Are we talking about truck drivers, rideshare drivers? Or,
Yes, it is. If you work, like for instance, if you were a tow truck driver, he was struck and killed while assisting a person on the side of the highway. We had a worker who was backed into at the back of a warehouse, and we've had cops pulled people over and were struck and killed as well. Literally, just being around motor vehicles is one of the most dangerous things you can do on the job.
And sometimes it means you're delivering pizza and you get held up.
Yeah, workplace violence was the third largest killer of workers this year. And the range of occupations that experience this range dramatically, from a sous chef to a doctor. And in the past, we've had human service workers killed, we've had teachers killed. It is one of the occupational hazards that affects literally every single one of us.
I would not be surprised to hear that you're concerned about the building trades.
Go a little bit further.
About the hazards in the building trades.
Construction is definitely one of the more hazardous occupations you can take part in, especially because you are prone to working from heights, and falls are a major killer of individuals. So we've had workers who worked on scaffolding, which was either struck by and they fell or collapsed. Just heights, you can fall down elevator shafts. There is working in those kind of occupations lends yourself to an increase in injuries and fatalities.
Well, this is a field where it's dangerous even if you have a union that backs you up and looks out for safety. But if you don't, you might be an immigrant who doesn't speak English, you might be worried about your legal status, and you don't want to make waves. So how do you protect workers like those?
In the past, immigrants actually experienced a higher ratio of being killed in the job than their representation in the workplace. This year, it was a little bit even, but if you look at trends, immigrant workers are more likely to be hurt and killed on the job, and that is because they are less likely to feel empowered enough to raise their concerns to their employer, knowing that their employer could say, I can replace you very quickly, I don't understand actually what you're telling me, or even we can report you regarding your immigration status. And so they kind of force them into a closet where they just kind of accept their occupation. And what we do is we do community outreach to let people know that regardless of their language capabilities or immigration status, they have rights in the job, including the right to a safe workplace and also workers' compensation, which a lot of employers try to tell their employees who work under the table that they're not entitled to. So regardless of your legal status, you are, as a worker in the United States, you're guaranteed certain rights.
Well, to some degree, these injuries and deaths are preventable. So what do we need to do to prevent more of them, at least?
So there are two agencies that protect workers in Massachusetts. For private sector workers, that is OSHA, which is a federal agency. And then we have the State Department of Labor Standards, which covers municipal workers. And they are both tragically underfunded. OSHA investigators, it would take, in the state alone, 152 years to investigate every single workplace that's under their protection. And the Department of Labor Standards is chronically underfunded to protect our workers who repair our roads, our bridges, who trim our trees, and do other things that are necessary for the public good.
What about regulations? Because I know regulations need people to enforce them, but sometimes there are other people who say, "No, we have too many regulations. People don't want to do business in this state if there's too much to watch out for." So, what about that?
So we find that completely unacceptable. That protecting workers' health and safety is a burdensome requirement that should be kind of streamlined so employers can put profits over people. And what we've spent 40 years pushing for the fact that workers need every single protection possible, because we are talking about people's lives here. People are going to work and never coming back, and those are fathers, those are mothers, those are grandparents, those are close friends, they're community advocates, they're people who we actually had a person who was killed while I think it was a taxi robbery or an attempted robbery during a taxi, and he was a Veterans of Foreign War advocate. And so that community lost a person who was helping some of our wounded soldiers. And so when people say that we need less regulation, the fact is that clearly we need more. And for instance, if you are killed on the job in the state, the average OSHA penalty for the employer is $18,500, which is just a drop in the bucket of a lot of corporations' profits. And so when people try to say that things like workplace protections are burdensome to like job creation, we're saying no, that these are people that you're employing, and then they need to be treated like people.
Well, you can regulate employers in workplace conditions, but what about the problem of violence? Because if you're a cab driver or driving for Uber, someone uses violence to try to threaten you and take your money. I mean, how do you prevent that?
That is where those may seem like random incidents, but many workplaces do not treat workplace violence as official policy to address. So we are asking that every single employer treat workplace violence as a very real threat to their employees, and have precautions in place and have procedures in place to, let's say, like evacuate an office in case there's an emergency, or having other kind of policies in place so it's not just people guessing what they should do, but actually having a thought out policy that can help prevent loss of life and injury.
Well, if people would like some more information about what you're doing at MassCOSH, or even to see this report, is there any way that they can follow up that way?
Yes, they can visit www.MassCOSH.org, so that's MassCOSH.org, or visit us on Facebook at MassCOSH.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
From MassCOSH, Jeff Newton.